National Guard troops are not handling law enforcement because Governor Blanco has made search and rescue their top priority. Rumors begin to spread of rampant violence in the Superdome and the Convention Center. Tales of widespread homicide, assault, and gang rapes. The national media report many of the rumors as confirmed facts. Most will turn out to be either false or highly exaggerated. Estimates of 200 dead bodies in the Superdome turned out to be untrue. A total of 6 people died in the stadium, 4 of natural causes, 1 from an overdose, and 1 suicide. Horror stories of mass murder inside the convention center also turn out to be way off the mark. Police recover 4 bodies. 1 is a homicide victim.
And I love the press. I mean, just at their perspective of what they're seeing and they're hearing, then it becomes circular reporting. One person reported was 2, the next time you hear it's 5.
Nonetheless, these 2 buildings and the anguished people inside them become the public face of an unfolding catastrophe. The kind that most Americans associate more with the third world than with their own country.
I don't have home. I had a home downtown, but it's gone. It's under the water. I have nothing, nothing.
They have over 3,000 people out of here with no home, no shelter. What are they gonna do? What are we gonna do?
The plight of Katrina's victims touches people all across the country, including this man, the owner of a bus company in a small town outside Minneapolis. He and his friends start a local relief effort.
Collected over 90,000 pounds of food and supplies in about a 24-hour period.
They caravan down to Louisiana, driving through the night, 6 buses and a truck. They deliver their food and emergency supplies to hurricane victims in Shreveport and Natchitoches. Bentonville, Arkansas, the Walmart's Emergency Operations Center. What started a week ago as an emergency effort to stock its stores has evolved. It's now a cooperative relief effort with the Red Cross in Mississippi and Louisiana.
We needed to start sending 5 trailers a day in to support Jefferson Parish to provide them water, dry food. And I remember there was 1 load of chainsaws to help cut some of the people out of the buildings.
Wednesday afternoon, Washington, D.C. President Bush returns to the White House and convenes a cabinet meeting. Bush and his advisors debate whether the federal government should try to take over the relief effort and take command of the Louisiana National Guard. According to published reports, the president calls Governor Blanco on Wednesday to float this idea, but cannot persuade her. In the weeks to come, aides to Blanco acknowledge that the governor spoke to the president on this day, but firmly deny that Mr. Bush made any such offer.
It's an issue of control. If she had allowed the president to take over the National Guard, she feared political recrimination. Here again is where politics immediately takes part, enters into these considerations.
Confusion about who's responsible for what relief effort is a problem reverberating all along the Gulf Coast.
FEMA, Red Cross, they got a few feeding trucks into the areas, but the assistance that you would typically think for a storm this magnitude in an area that was so hardly hit, they just didn't show up.
New Orleans, Wednesday night. Buses arrive at the Superdome to begin the evacuation. But one group of New Orleans residents is already being evacuated, not by the city, the state, or FEMA. This young man, 20-year-old Jabbar Gibson, commandeers a school bus. He loads it up with people in need of shelter, and off they go to Texas. 10:35 p.m. Gibson arrives at the Houston Astrodome. He deposits his passengers at the newly designated shelter. TV networks replay the footage of Gibson at the wheel. In the midst of a crisis that's overwhelming government at all levels, here at least is a private citizen seizing the moment, acting heroically. But people are wondering, where are the public officials who should be doing the same? Thursday, September 1st, 2005, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. On ABC's Good Morning America, President Bush offers a comment about Hurricane Katrina that kicks up a political dust storm.
I don't think anybody anticipated the breach of the levees.
Some experts had in fact warned that the levees might fail if a big hurricane swept through New Orleans.
The president said he's going to lead the investigation into what went wrong. He needed to look only in the mirror.
In God's name, we're the people who are supposed to give water, support. People were dying there. What in heaven's name was happening?
Next target for outrage, the slow evacuation of the Superdome. It will take 3 days to transport all 20,000 stranded evacuees to Houston and elsewhere.
The guys put it on the ground and send these trucks back for another load.
Yes, sir.
Make that happen now.
Yes, sir.
Army General Russell Honore is in charge of the transport. To many observers, Honore is the first official on the scene who seems to be actually taking charge.
This whole humanitarian thing comes down to logistics. You can't get buses in there because of the water. Then we could get them in there. We had to bring them in 2 at a time.
The Red Cross offers its services in New Orleans, but Louisiana officials will decline the offer. They tell the Red Cross they cannot guarantee their safety and that Red Cross vehicles might disrupt rescue efforts. Mississippi. Getting aid to some hurricane victims is time-consuming because the population is so spread out.
George W. Bush, get out the White House and come help us.
Police ain't helping. There's been one Salvation Army truck come by. You know, they set up over there. They stayed there about 3 hours. They were gone.
Help can't come fast enough for New Orleans. Massive sandbags start to plug the hole in the 17th Street Canal to keep floodwaters at bay. National Guard troops now begin to retake the city. Their mission is to go door to door and look for survivors.
Attention rescue, call out, make a noise, we're here to help.
Some of them didn't want to evacuate with us, and we didn't want to let people back out into the city. We don't want to have to come in and rescue again in those conditions.
New Orleans police team up with other rescuers.
No bodies in that one. House we checked before his guy dead, he had it.
This officer trudges through knee-deep water to see if anyone is trapped inside here.
Good news, at least she's not there. You know, it looked like the water came up about another foot into the house, but it looked like she made it out.
Not everyone did.
My kids are dead. I wasn't there. I come home, you know. I went out to get my money, you know. I come back, everything's underwater. My wife's gone. I don't want to talk about it, man.
Bureaucracy slows down the relief effort. This group drove 22 hours from Florida. When they arrive, officials ask them to show credentials and sign paperwork. The process takes 2 days.
There was no communication with the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. And we are all organized, we're certified, we got rescue boats, and they told us to sit.
And still the relief efforts are stalled. Thousands of people remain stranded at the convention center in horrendous conditions, with no food or water. Garbage overflows onto the sidewalks and streets. The sick, like this man, are carried on gurneys over strewn debris.
Use my French, everybody in America, but I am pissed.
Thursday evening. In a radio interview, Mayor Ray Nagin takes a shot at both state and national officials.
Don't do another press conference until
The resources are in this city. Now get off your asses and let's do something. And let's fix the biggest goddamn crisis in the history of this country.
11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. FEMA Director Michael Brown appears on ABC News Nightline. Ted Koppel asks him about reports that FEMA did not know about the people stranded in the convention center until today.
Don't you guys watch television? Don't you guys listen to the radio? Our reporters have been reporting about it for more than just today.
We learned about it factually today that that's what existed. We've been so focused on doing rescue and life-saving missions and evacuating people from the Superdome that when we first learned about it, of course, my first gut instinct was get somebody in there.
Koppel also asks Brown why FEMA did not respond faster to Katrina.
When the levees did break, we were already moving in and then had to move back out. And then I think the other thing that really caught me by surprise was the fact that there were so many people, and I'm not laying blame, but either chose not to evacuate or could not evacuate.
The explanations might be logical, but in the hurricane zone, the problems are vast and urgent. People are growing furious at the slow pace of the relief efforts.
It's still a slow process, because you got a whole city here, you know what I'm saying? We don't have nothing to go home to, nothing.
Mobile, Alabama. Friday, September 2nd, 2005, 10:35 a.m. President Bush gets his first ground-level look at the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. With FEMA Director Mike Brown at his side, he responds to the growing criticism of federal relief efforts.
It's not going exactly right. We're going to make it go exactly right. If there's problems, we're going to address the problems. And that's what I've come down to assure people. And Brownie, you're doing a heck of a job. The FEMA director's working 24.
New Orleans, 12 p.m. Louisiana National Guard troops march into the convention center. Within 30 minutes, they restore order and begin to distribute food and water. Within 36 hours, they evacuate 25,000 people from the building. They're bussed and flown to shelters around the country. 5 p.m. Air Force One touches down at the Louis Armstrong Airport in New Orleans. In his office on the plane, the president meets with both Governor Kathleen Blanco and Mayor Ray Nagin. The mayor later describes the meeting.
We're in Air Force One. I say, Mr. President, Madam Governor, you two have to get in sync. If you don't get in sync, more people are gonna die.
But the president and the governor do not get in sync. Blanco will reject Bush's proposal for a federal takeover of the relief effort. When the president returns to Washington, he signs the first of many aid packages for hurricane victims. Monday, September 5th. Tensions are also building between Governor Blanco and Mayor Nagin. In one interview, the mayor compares the relief efforts of General Honoré to those of the state government.
And when he hit the field, we started to see action. And what the state was doing, I don't frickin' know.
Tuesday, September 6th. The Army Corps of Engineers begins pumping water out of New Orleans and back into Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River.
We established a separate task force on watering, so that they could focus totally on just pumping out water and getting the pump stations operational.
Friday, September 9th. 11 days after Katrina struck, more than half of New Orleans is still underwater. Roughly 1 million people have evacuated from the hurricane zone. Government agencies and volunteer groups are providing shelter to more than 250,000. Others are living with friends or relatives around the country. In the flooded streets of New Orleans' Araby neighborhood, filthy water laps at second-story windows.
You're gonna die, man. I'm telling you, you're gonna die. I don't want you to die, man. I know you.
National Guard and FEMA crews search from house to house, trying to clear out the bitter enders who refuse to evacuate. Mayor Nagin has called for everyone to leave the city. He has clashed with Governor Blanco, who insisted the mayor had no authority to enforce such a total evacuation. By now, local, state, and federal forces, as well as volunteers, have performed almost 50,000 rescues. FEMA has delivered 18 million packaged meals and 10 million gallons of drinking water to flood victims.
Here you go, guys.
No, we're not leaving.
And people all across America have chipped in to help.
Y'all have met us in every need, in every way. And we couldn't ask for no more.
Donations to groups providing Katrina relief top $1 billion. It's the biggest outpouring since 9/11. Baton Rouge. Landline telephone connections are coming back up. For the first time since Katrina hit, Louisiana emergency officials are able to convene a conference call. No FEMA liaison is on the line as local officials unload their frustrations with the agency.
We thought we were going to have a meeting with Baton Rouge people, the FEMA people, yesterday. We canceled that one, so I don't know where we are with it, other than it's just creating downright chaos.
One of the big gripes has to do with temporary housing. It's FEMA's job to provide it across the hurricane zone.
They made commitments to the city of Slidell for 400 trailers. None of us know who the guy was that talked to them, but what his authority was. So it's a mess.
State emergency official Jeff Smith says he's taken the problem to a higher level.
Well, I flew my top this morning, and I brought that up actually to the Vice President last night. That's unacceptable. So we need to be able to fix the communication problem. In no sense being a FEMA basher here, we're trying to solve problems. We're up here doing the best that we possibly can for you and we feel for you.
The emergency director from Jefferson Parish, Walter Maestri, is angry that FEMA has not fulfilled promises made before the hurricane struck.
First and foremost, we have still not received, since the storm, any of our gasoline and diesel shipments. As you recall, on the last conference call before the storm hit, we requested the Gen Packs.
Gen Packs are generators. Without them, Maestri cannot operate his parish's sewage system.
The matter is going into the street, and we're going to have a medical disaster. I don't know what's going on, but not one generator through that system has arrived here. And now when we are on our knees, nothing's available.
This same afternoon, Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff holds a press conference in Baton Rouge to defend FEMA.
Mike Brown has done everything he possibly could.
Nevertheless, Chertoff is sending Mike Brown back to D.C. He appoints Vice Admiral Thad Allen, a 34-year Coast Guard veteran, to oversee the FEMA relief effort. 3 days later, on September 12th, Michael Brown resigns. He leaves behind a tarnished organization and an enormous political problem for the Bush administration. The following week, another hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico gives officials at all levels of government a chance to prove they learned something from Katrina.
Let's not get stuck on the last storm.
Right now we're going down Paris Avenue, which is like a major hub going to the lakefront of New Orleans. Most of these are single-family homes.
2 weeks after flooding from Hurricane Katrina decimated New Orleans, City Councilwoman Cynthia Morell and her husband Arthur, a state representative, boat through their neighborhood.
It's my son's car, right there, the top of it.
My Jeep over there.
And that's his Jeep.
The pressure from the water pushed these concrete retainers, and the dirt gave way. And then the water just pushed in. Down on the other side, they just fell. Because those rebars and that concrete could not hold all this. It's too heavy.
Some of the city's giant pumps have begun to send the floodwaters back into Lake Pontchartrain. People are returning to inspect their homes.
As you can see, this used to be a pretty nice block with the houses, mostly families, all lived here. all of the family, Munley, Kate, Mr. Hamp, Miss Johnson, Yancey's, Fletcher's, you know, Lange had the barbershop there.
City Council President Oliver Thomas visits his neighborhood in the 9th Ward and the house where he grew up.
I said that all my crime was done. But I guess it's not. This is the house my father used his GI Bill to buy this house, so we wouldn't have to rent or live with family anymore.
As authorities search more neighborhoods in New Orleans, the death toll climbs. Over the next month, it will exceed 1,200 across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The Gulf Coast has lost its battle with Hurricane Katrina. Survivors remain trapped for days, while the most powerful nation on earth struggled to bring them food and relief. Hardly an inspiring performance, especially in a post-9/11 world.
I think that people in this country had a right to believe that the country was being made more safe after September 11th.
Everybody dropped the ball on this, there's no question about it.
Tuesday, September 13th, President Bush becomes the first top official to accept blame for the Katrina crisis.
Katrina exposed serious problems in our response capability at all levels of government. And to the extent that the federal government didn't fully do its job right, I take responsibility.
Mic check, 1, 2, mic check.
Tuesday, September 20th. Another hurricane, Rita, storms into the Gulf. Public officials have a second chance to get it right.
Don't get stuck on stupid, reporters. We're moving forward. And don't confuse the people, please. Let's not get stuck on the last storm.
Our first mission is to save lives. We have a coordinated federal, state, and local effort moving in place as we speak.
The federal government was busy assuring us there had been plans made, people prepositioned, plenty of supplies, water, meals ready to eat. They were determined not to make the same mistake again 3 weeks later.
Saturday, September 24th. Hurricane Rita comes ashore between Johnson's Bayou, Louisiana, and Sabine Pass, Texas. Damage is extensive and dozens of people are killed. But this time, the government seems to have its act together.
Select committee will come to order.
Washington, D.C., Tuesday, September 27th.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's hearing.
The recently resigned FEMA Director Michael Brown testifies before a House committee. Brown places blame for the events in New Orleans squarely at the local and state level.
I very strongly, personally regret that I was unable to persuade Governor Blanco and Mayor Nagin to sit down, get over their differences, and work together. I just couldn't pull that off. My biggest mistake was not recognizing by Saturday that Louisiana was dysfunctional.
The very next day, Louisiana Governor Kathleen Blanco appears before a Senate committee, but does not answer Brown's attack.
You were criticized yesterday heavily by Mr. Brown. I'd just give you a chance here if you would like to respond to that.
Senator Conrad, I appreciate that, but today I came really to talk about job creation.
Monday, October 17th, FEMA has released emails to the House committee investigating Katrina, and they are leaked to reporters. Michael Brown sent one to a colleague 2 days before Katrina struck. In it, he alludes to FEMA's 2004 Hurricane Pam war game. Look at this scenario compared to the planning we did for New Orleans, and well, you get the picture. But who did get the picture? 5 days after Katrina, another email from a frustrated FEMA official in Mississippi suggests the agency did not. Resources are far exceeded by requirements, he writes, getting less than 25% of what we have been requesting from HQ daily. Katrina has caused Americans to wonder whether the government at any level is prepared to respond to a major disaster or terrorist event in their hometowns. After 9/11, Congress provided billions of dollars for cities and states to improve their evacuation plans. How good would those plans be in a crisis? Take New York City. It depends on its vulnerable public transit system to get people to safety. Or Los Angeles. In the event of a catastrophic earthquake that would require people to flee the city, LA has no plan for evacuating millions of people or housing them.
I don't see a water line. I may be lucky. Big gray house on the corner.
Jazz trumpeter Kermit Ruffins returns home. His house is on relatively high ground and escaped significant damage.
To look at that city now is just like, we can't wait to rebuild. I mean, that's all we can think about. That's my baby picture there. Some of my records right here. Nice kitchen back there. Remember those red beans and rice?
Ruffins then checks out Vaughn's, the neighborhood bar where he's played a Thursday night gig for the last 13 years.
Tell you one thing, it looks exactly the same. This place will be rolling in no time. All we need is electricity here.
Hurricane Katrina has dampened the spirit of the Big Easy, but it has not drowned it.
May take a year for it to really start thriving again. We will swing again.
Have you ever been to New Orleans? It's the hottest city you've ever seen.